Assalamu alaikum, dear guys. As you know that in the previous lecture we had read first two paragraph of lesson number 5 or essay number 5 entitled On Destroying Books, written by J.C. Squire. We had read first two paragraphs and we had discussed the things beneath the lines, beneath the text. We had discussed and we had explained everything given by J.C. Squire in the first two paragraphs about the books, how books are destroyed, how they can be destroyed, what are the benefits of destroying books, and it is the duty of the general public to destroy books, and that books are so difficult to destroy. They've got long life. It is really hard to destroy books, and it is problematic to destroy books, and how he himself faced this problem of destroying books when he had got lots of books accumulated in his flat, and he didn't know the way how he could get rid of those books. So this discussion was given in the first two paragraphs. We are moving towards the third paragraph of this chapter. Let's begin with it. It was nearly midnight as I stepped into the street. There was a cold nip in the air. So previously he had told that he improvised a sack, and he had stuffed the books into a sack, and he had planned to throw the books down into the river, into the cold river in the night time. And now he says that it was nearly midnight. What was the time that he planned to throw the books away? That was midnight, and he stepped into the street. There was a cold nip in the air, means as it was cold outside, it was feeling pinching cold. There was a slight pinching cold in the air. The sky was full of stars. The sky was full of stars means it wasn't cloud. The sky was clear, and the greenish yellow lamps threw long gleams across the smooth hard road. There was a smooth hard long road, and the street lights they gave greenish yellow shade. They were giving lights throughout the road. They were giving lights throughout the smooth road. Few people were about. Very few means few is used when there is something, the quantity or the number is almost none. So few people means very rarely people were seen about. They were walking about, and here and there rang out the steps of solitary travelers on the way home across the bridge to Battersea. So what happened is that at that time very rarely some of the solitary travelers means a person who is traveling alone, they were going their home across the bridge, and they were going towards Battersea, means the people who had gone for work somewhere, and they were going back now through the bridge. They were going back towards their home in Battersea. I turned up my overcoat collar. He turned his overcoat collar up, means he made it straight, settled my sack comfortably across my shoulders. He hung the sack of the books across his shoulder, means that it couldn't harm him in a way that it couldn't harm his shoulder. It couldn't hurt his shoulders, and strode off towards the little square glow of the coffee stall which marked the near end of the bridge. And he says that he stepped on foot, by foot he was walking towards the little square glow. There was a coffee stall whose light was giving a glow, whose light was lightening up a small part of the bridge in square, whose sweeping iron girders were just visible against the dark sky behind. And what about the bridge? There was a bridge. The iron metals, the iron bars of that bridge could be seen against the sky, dark sky behind. Why was the sky dark? Because it was night time. It was quite dark over there, and On that bridge there was a coffee stall, and the light of the coffee stall was lightening up a square area of that bridge, of a small square area of that bridge. So he entered into that square area. A few doors down, I passed a policeman who was flashing his lantern on the catches of basement windows. So he passed by a policeman during his during his steps. He passed by a policeman during his walk. He passed by a policeman, and that policeman was flashing his lantern, his light, his lamp on the basement windows. He turned. The policeman turned. I thought, I had imagined that he looked suspicious, that there was some suspicion in his eyes for the writer, for J.C. Squire, and I trembled slightly, and the writer trembled slightly. He had a slight shiver, thinking that the policeman is having some doubts upon him. The thought occurred to me. What thought occurred to him, to the writer, is perhaps he suspects I have swag in this sack. So the writer thought that might be the policeman is thinking that I have got some stolen goods, some stolen money, or some stolen something very we can say costly, something very very valuable I have got in this sack, and that is stolen. I was not seriously disturbed, as I knew that I could bear investigation and that nobody would be suspected of having stolen such goods. Thought they were all first editions, as I was, though they were all first editions as I was carrying. He says that though I doubted that the policeman is thinking me as a burglar or a thief, and that I am stuffing some stolen goods in the sack, still this thought didn't disturb the writer so seriously, because he knew that he could answer the investigation of the policeman, and he could argue that nobody he could argue that that the things which he was having in the sack, that couldn't be stolen by anyone. No one could think of stealing such kind of useless things, and he says that these were the first editions, so no one can doubt anyone of stealing the books, because books are not the things to be stolen, according to the writer. Nevertheless, I could not help the slight unease which comes to all who are eyed suspiciously by the police. Still, however, he had a light feeling of uneasiness, and he says that this uneasiness is common to anyone who is suspected by a policeman, and to all who are detected in any deliberately furtive act, however harmless, and any person who seems to be suspicious, who seems to be keeping some secret, who acts like he has something secret with him, or any reflexes which show that some person is is doing something suspicious, and obviously if any policeman sees that person will definitely be uneasy to be suspected by the policeman. He acquitted me. Means he freed me. Of the suspicion. Means his reflexes, the reflexes of the policeman no more told that he was doubting the writer, apparently, and with the step that, making an effort, I prevented from growing more rapid. And as soon as the writer detected that the policeman is no more suspecting him, he wanted to run far away and speedily away from the policeman, but he made his own effort. He tried not to get speedy in his pace, as this would cause more doubt to the policeman. I walked on until I reached the embankment. So finally he walked in his normal pace, and finally he reached the embankment, that is the bank of the river, or the bridge of the river. It was then that all the implications of my act revealed themselves. So it was the time that the what would be the outcomes. He came to know, he realized the outcomes of the act he had planned to do, that is throwing the books into the river. I leaned against the parapet and looked down into the faintly luminous swirls of the river. Parapet is a support, a small boundary of stone on the bridge, which keeps the we can say a fence type, we can say, but that is made of stone or marble or whatever. So he leaned against that parapet and looked down into the faintly luminous, and he looked down the bridge, and faintly luminous swirls means the waves of the water waves, who luminous, which are brightening, which are glowing, and the glow is very faint, that is very dull type of glow of the waves moving into the river. Suddenly I heard a step near me. So suddenly, it's quickly he heard a step, that there is someone who is stepping near him, quite automatically, and that was quite automatically, unconsciously, and non-deliberately. I sprang back. He suddenly sprang back from the parapet, from the bank of the river. He sprang back. He quickly moved back from the wall and began walking on with, and he suddenly started moving on and walking on. Because of the steps near him, he thought that someone is near, and he couldn't have the courage to throw the books down in the presence of someone. I fervently hoped. Fervently means the reflexes of being restless and quick and speedy, an air of rumination and unconcern, and he just went down into his thoughts. He thought that I'm busy or engaged in my thoughts, and I'm not concerned with whoever is walking beside me. The pedestrian came by me without looking at me, and that pedestrian, that passerby who was walking near him, he just passed by without looking at him. It was a tramp who had other things to think about. So it was a tramp. What was that pedestrian? What kind of person he was? He was just a tramp, a person walking about, and he had many other things in his mind. So he didn't take notice of the writer. And calling myself an ass, and then he realized that I'm an ass, means the writer thought that I'm an ass, I'm a fool, that I stopped again. That I am a fool, that I got afraid of a pedestrian who has many other things to think about, and he is not going to notice me. And then he stopped again. Now for it. He thought that now I would do it. But just as I was preparing to cast my books upon the waters, I heard another step. Then again, when he was quite prepared to throw the books down into the river, what happened? He heard another step, a slow and measured. Now this time the step was very slow and very measured. It seemed that it was not like the steps of the previous pedestrian who was walking by in his own mind, in his own mood, and in his own thoughts. The next thought came like a blaze of terrible blue lightning across my brain, and the very next thought which occurred to him, that was quite blue lightning across his brain, that is, it disturbed him very much. What about the splash? What about the splash? He thought that when I would throw the books down into the river, it would create a noise, the noise of water, the sound of water, a very big splash. A man leaning at midnight over the embankment wall. Now he thought that what would be considered of a man, that is himself, who is leaning at midnight, the time is midnight, over the embankment wall. A sudden fling of his arms, he is going to fling the arms to throw something down. A great splash occurs in the water. Surely what will happen is that, and not without reason, and he has no reason to do it. Whoever was within sight and hearing, and whoever he says that if he does so, whoever will be near him, around him, and he catches sight of all this happening, and he hears the splash, that is the sound of water, and there always seem to be someone near. And he writes in the parenthesis that though there was someone or not, but still whenever someone was passing by, he was more conscious of the presence of the people, because he was going to do some act, and that act was could be taken as if some suspicious act. That's why he thought that perhaps there would be someone nearby, would at once rush at me and seize me. And he thinks that if there would be someone and he sees what I am doing and he hears the splash, he would at once come and seize him. In all probability they would think it was a baby. So he says that likely, it is quite likely, it is very we can say it can happen, it is certainly it can happen that they would think that he has thrown some baby down into the river. What on earth would be the good of telling a London constable that I had come out into the cold and come down alone to the river to get rid of a pack of poetry? He says that nobody in London, no constable in London would believe his words if he says that I have come in such a cold and in the time of midnight, and I have come alone to get rid of a pack of poetry only. So no one would believe him. I could almost hear his gruff, sneering laugh. So he says that if I would give this reason to any London constable, he would give him a rough kind of sneering, taunting or criticizing laugh, and you tell that to the Marines, my son. Okay, this is the thing this such kind of lie you can tell to the Marines and not to me. He would say like this. So in this paragraph he has explained the fears. He has explained all the fears regarding the outcome of the act of throwing down the books into the river. So far I do not know how long I strayed up and down. He says that I do not know how long it took me to stray up and down the river, increasingly fearful, the bridge of the river, increasingly fearful of being watched, summoning up by courage to take the plunge and quailing from it at the last moment. What went on is that he strayed long over there, and then he was increasingly fearful of being watched, that someone will watch him, and he again mustered up his courage to take the plunge and quailing from it, and finally he moved away from it in cowardice to at the last moment. So this happened again and again, repeatedly. This happened that he mustered up courage, but then he got fearful and he stopped from that act. At last I did, but finally he did it. In the middle of the Chelsea bridge there are projecting circular bays with seats in them. He says that in the middle of that bridge there are projecting circular bays. Base is a round shape, means where the water is going into water and earth is going into a round shape in the sea. There are different positions, and in those areas, in those bays, they had kept some seats. So he says they were projecting circular bays. In my agony, in my tension, in my depression, in my we can say in my disturbance of decision, I left the embankment and hastened straight for the first of these. And he left the bank of the river and he went towards one of those bays. When I reached it, I knelt on the sea. On one of the seat he knelt down, looking over. Again he looked over, and then he again hesitated, but I had reached the turning point. But now it was the turning point. What? I thought savagely. Roughly he thought, what will happen? Under the resolute mask that you show your friends, is there really a shrinking and contemptible coward? So he reminded himself, he made himself realize that what are you actually? You show you are wearing a resolute mask. You show to your friends, apparently you seem to be a very good person, a very resolute person, but actually there is a shrinking and contemptible coward in that mask. Under that mask you are going to shrink, you are going to shrink, and you are a coward. So he mustered up his courage by making himself realize of the reality, and then he in a way he we can say he scolded himself, and to muster up the courage to throw those books down into the river. If you fall now, if you are not successful now, you must never hold your head up again. Means if you he told to himself that if you can't do such a minor act of throwing books down into the river, then you won't be able to hold your head up again. Means you won't be able to live as a normal strong person. Anyhow, what if you are hanged for it? But then again he thought, the other side of the brain told him that but wait, what if he is suspected of doing some hideous crime, he is suspected of throwing some dead body into the river, like, or baby into the river. He might be hanged for it, he might go to the gallows. Good God, you worm, better men than you have gone to the gallows. And he says, then again he relieves himself of this thought by saying that better men than you have gone to the gallows. So what if you go to gallows? No matter. With the courage of despair, I took a heave. Then he had a very deep breath in a courage of hopelessness. Though he was hopelessness, but he mustered up his courage again, and he took a very deep sigh. The sack dropped sheer. Now what happened? He finally dropped the sack vertically down into the water, and there was a vast splash. Vast splash means a very rich sound of the water, and the water had a very big circle. Then silence fell again, and now the silence finally the silence fell again. No one came, and no one came as he suspected. No one came. Contrary to what he expected, that someone would come and he would seize him immediately, and he would suspect him of throwing some baby down into the river. So it doesn't nothing of such kind happened. I turned home, he turned back home, and I walked, and as he was walking, I thought a little sadly of all those books falling into the cold torrent. And while he was walking, he was feeling sorry for the books which were fallen down into the river, into the cold waves of the river, settling down slowly down. And he was thinking of them, he was imagining them, that they are slowly they are settling down through the pitchy dark and subsiding through the pitchy dark of the river bottom, and subsiding at last on the ooze of the bottom. And they were finally they were resting themselves. He was imagining the books as resting themselves on the ooze of the bottom, the water or the fluid of the bottom of the river, there to lie forlorn. And there he was feeling for them, that they would lie, the books would lie forlorn, means alone and forgotten, and no one will remember them. They will be forgotten one day, whilst the unconscious world of men went on, whilst what was happening meanwhile, that the unconscious world, the world means the people who are unconscious of those books, they would the world of those men would went on and on. Everyone will be in their in their own routine, and no one would remember those books. So he was feeling pity of for the books, horrible bad books. Some of them were horrible bad books, they were poor innocent books, but then he contrarily, in part paradoxically, he calls them poor innocent books. You are lying there still, you are lying there still, you are still and silent, you are lying over there covered perhaps with mud by this time, and by that time perhaps you have been covered with the mud, with only a strayed rag of your sacking sticking out of the slime into the opaque brown tides. And he says that only a strayed rag of your sackings, the little pieces of thread of the sacking might be, they are sticking out of the slime or mud into the opaque, opaque means non-transparent brown tides waves of the river. Odes to Diana. What were the books? You remember that these books were of poetry, so he calls them Odes to Diana, sonnets to Ethel, dramas on the love of Lancelot, stanzas on a first glimpse of Venice, You Lie. So all of these are the titles of those books which he remembers they were present in that sack. You lie there in a living death, you are living there, you are lying there in a living death. Though you are living, you are not destroyed, you are intact, you are intact, your pages are intact, your words are intact, but you are dead. So he calls them living dead. They are, why are they dead? Because they are forgotten, no one will read them, no one will remember them, that's why. And your fate is perhaps worse than you deserved, and he feels pity for them, that the fate of those books being thrown down into the river is worse than they deserve. They could have better fate than this. So this is how very beautifully, very beautifully, very interestingly he has narrated the story of destroying his own books and books of poetry, and the use of different paradoxes, the use of different suspicions, the two minds, that is a mind, a coward mind and a courageous mind, how he was getting afraid, how he was mustering up courage. That is really very beautiful description given by J.C. Squire. You people are supposed to answer the questions given at the end of this essay, and obviously you will find answer all of them in this text. And the other thing you are supposed to do is that to learn the synonyms of the difficult words given in this text. So this was all about this chapter. We will meet again with the next chapter, with the next essay in the next lecture, inshallah. See you. Allah Hafiz.